I've got a presentation to go over a few different things today. Some is how to get the best way to get in contact with the service department. We are trying to keep track of every issue that you have. So we're trying to make sure it's getting into our service portal system so that we can track it. If we start to see and analyze the data as far as tracking those issues over time, that we can turn that into our engineering, our quality departments, so that they're aware of it. And sometimes that takes a little longer than just taking a quick phone call, answering your question, and going to the next person. But we want to make sure that we're collecting that information and then trying to continuously build a better picture for you. All right, service portal, service help. There's so many different ways that we've got it set up to design you to get into it. One, of course, is on the Oliver Travel Trailers website. You go into it, select owners, and then you've got several different things to select. Whether you select service center or open tickets, it's automatically going to go into our service portal for you. So once you drop in there, you just highlight service center or open tickets, either one. You click it, and then it should launch to the next support portal homepage. Now, once you get there, and this is the portal, this is only one way that you can utilize the system. I'm going to go over several other ways to utilize it as well. But this way allows you to log in, track every single ticket you've ever had with us, whether it's open, it's closed, or it's on hold. We use different statuses. If it's open, we're still working with you. If it's closed, it should be resolved. If it's on hold, it may be because we've escalated it up the chain, either within our own company or to the vendor for some more information, or just for them to analyze what's going on and see what needs to be done. But inside the support portal homepage, you'll also notice it's got the knowledge base. There's a lot of information. I keep trying to add more and more stuff. This is something separate from the Oliver University. This is what I have direct access to, and I just keep adding. Sometimes when somebody calls me with something and I have to put something together to help them get through a situation, I document it and I add it to the knowledge base, so that way everybody else has access to it. My phone support people will have access to it. Because one of the things I'll tell you, when you have all the knowledge in the world, experience is always going to be that. And if you've already experienced that issue and know how to fix it, you're ahead of the game. So the knowledge-based articles are there to help. You would just sign in, click either one, go through. But once you do go in, you'll set up, it'll ask you if you're a member. If you're not, you can sign up. You'll see it's got a sign up, forgot password reset. I have to do it just about every time I log in. It's always forget the password. They've got it now where these passwords have to have special characters, uppercase, lowercase, 13 characters long. You either have to write all that down and reset it every time. So I did want to show the forgot password. If you select it, you just have to put it in there. It's got one of the captchas. I also don't like those. I don't know if y'all ever go in there and you put it in exactly right. Tells you it's wrong and keeps sending you back. But ours works pretty good. I've never had it tell me I got it wrong. So reset the password. It'll let you know, send you to a link. It's going to send you an email. And that's what the email is going to look like once you receive it. So I sent myself one because I couldn't remember how to get in. You just click the link, and then once you click the link, it's going to send you to the reset password. Reset the password, click it, and then it should launch and put you into the portal. Now, once it does, you'll go back to that same screen. If you look at the top right corner, yeah, it's top right as well. You'll see where it says JE. That just means I'm signed in. I'll have access to everything. Across the top bar, it just says Home, My Area, and Knowledge Base. The My Area is where all of your tickets and information will be stored. So you'll be able to see anything that's open, closed, on hold. And we're going to look at that a little bit more. I want to go in on how to submit a ticket from this area. You would just go in, add a new ticket. It's going to pull up kind of like an email thing where you punch in the CC section. If you're wanting someone else to be included on this, if you have a spouse, a friend, an RV technician that you're working with, and you want them included, you can put them in the CC spot. All communication that's responded to should go to them and you as well. As far as the priority, you can select the priority, high, medium, and low. We do tend to, when we see something, if it looks like an emergency, try to jump to those customers first. If it's something that, sometimes your issue may even be something that we may have to ask a question to the plant, to the engineer, but we'll always get in contact with you. Now, I did want to show you where you see popular articles. That just shows articles that other people have been pulling up and looking at. Now, if we go to the next screen, I've entered in the subject line. I've typed in Dometic AC, and it changed from popular articles to related articles, and immediately pops up some information on Dometic AC. May be relevant to you, may be helpful, may not be, but it does try to get some information to you so to help you out in case we're currently unavailable on the phone helping someone else. On the bottom, you'll also see a place where it says attach a file. If you have something, sometimes it's a whole lot easier for us working on the phone to have a picture, a video, something so that we can actually put eyes on it and know what's going on. It's really hard to fix something over the phone unless it's either a common mistake, common issue. Otherwise, every situation can slightly be different. But if we can look at it and see it, it helps out quite a bit. Once you submitted the ticket, this is just what you'll see on your end that goes ahead. You'll notice it assigns it a ticket ID number that's unique. It'll always be with that ticket. This ticket, through its history, will track everything that goes on your side, our side. If something happens, and 10 years from now, I'm not with Oliver Travel Trailers. Well, in 10 years, Rodney wouldn't be there either. But basically, anybody can go in and see it forever. It's going to be in the database. Also, what helps with this is if you submit a ticket, right now you have myself and Mike Sharp. Some of you may know him, and we're the ones that try to manage it. He's the primary person that's in there, and then once I have sections of time in between all my other duties, I jump on there and try to help as much as I can. But that way both of us can see what's happening. I can see what he's already spoken with you about, any communication. It just helps us so to where we don't have to start over. If for some reason he's not available, you talk to me. But again, you'll always have a record of it as well on your end. You'll notice from here, you can go ahead and add in a ticket. You can close the ticket on your end if you want to, if you decide it's resolved. Otherwise, we usually do on ours. There's some information here that you'll look at. Let's see, it'll show your email down at the bottom. I just blinked mine out because I didn't want to provide my personal email. Sorry. But joking aside, a lot of times if you send me an email directly to my company account, if I'm out at a rally like this right now and you're emailing me, I'm not getting it. So if you send it to service support, Mike's still there on staff. I do have some other people that help. Ryder Conkle, who is the parts person. So if you need parts, you usually get in contact with him and try to get that together for you. But that way they can help you as quick as possible. This is just another ticket that I was wanting to show, basically putting in this time Suburban water heater. You'll see that I added a file, a picture of an anode rod, as far as the deterioration on it. You'll notice the articles, again, they've changed now from the Dometic AC, and they're showing stuff that's relevant to a water heater. It's just once you've submitted it, this is where it'll show your end. From this section here, you can click the top. I think you can, you can see pretty good on your side. The My Area and Service at the top, you click that, that takes you to your home page. That's where you'll be able to view all your open tickets. You can click on the attachment and view the one that you submitted to us, just to make sure everything's okay. But once you click My Area, now it's going to show you have two open tickets, Suburban water heater and the Dometic AC. You can also see closed tickets are 4, and there are no tickets on hold. You can add more tickets, go into those tickets, click close. At that point, you can review old tickets. One thing I do want to tell you about any ticket that gets closed, the system is designed to where if you pull up the last response that was received on that ticket and you reply to us, it automatically opens the same ticket up. So if it's something to where you thought it was resolved and a week later you find out it's not, you just simply can reply through your email and it'll automatically open the ticket back up so that we're aware of it and we can reach back out to you. I did want to show, since I had the anode rod picture attached, what a good anode rod looks like and what a bad one looks like, because we do get quite a few phone calls and it starts falling apart. It's supposed to fall apart. It's a sacrificial anode. It's sacrificing itself so your water heater keeps going. But usually at the 75% mark, that's when you're going to want to start thinking about replacing it. That's only for the suburban water heater. The Truma does not have that. It has a decalcification cleaning process instead. I just wanted to show you a little bit so you could better understand the system as far as our side, what we see. Once you submit a ticket, this is what we would see when we pull open your ticket. It's going to give us your name, your email address, and the phone number as long as we have it. If you have an account in there, it's automatically pull up. If you're a new customer who purchased it used and this is the first time we're in contact, we'll only have whatever information you submitted to us, and then we'll have to start building upon that. But this way we can work with you. Now the way the system works, it has comments and emails. The email feature works inside the portal, and it works just through your regular email. So when we send you an email, it's coming from this service portal so that we can track it. And if we ever have to look back through some of the stuff, we can. It's easier because it keeps it organized versus regular email and lost. The comment feature, however, only works if you're signed into the portal. You don't have to use that. That's only if you choose to. But you can go into the portal and use the comment feature, send comments over to us instead of the emails. This is just showing basically where we would send a email reply back to you. So it just comes in standard email format. And this is just showing once we sent that email, what it would look like to you if you were in the portal. If you went and signed into the portal, you'd be able to see this top section between my picture where it says all of our sales and service. That's an email you received, and then the section below that was the comment that we posted and sent to you. But again, the comments, we don't use those a lot, except for there are a few customers who have been using it, and we'll comment back and forth in there, just whichever is easier for you. Now, one thing I do want to make sure everybody knows, we tried to streamline everything as far as phone calls. At one time we had probably 10 phone numbers out there, personal phone numbers for different people. A lot of those people aren't even with us anymore. So I wanted to make sure everybody has our new number, the 888-526-3978. That phone number comes directly into our office, and someone will answer the phone. It cycles through a few people there in the office to answer. At that point, that way they can greet you, know who you are, know who you're needing to speak with, and then transfer you out to service, to sales. Now that is during business hours. At 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, they've got it set up where it automatically starts to roll over to an after-hours voicemail. Then you'll select sales, service, whoever you're wanting to leave a voicemail for. And that, when you leave a voicemail, whether it's in normal hours or after hours, I have it set up that it automatically creates a service ticket for you. That way, we know we have a missed call and somebody can call back. At that point, if it's new, we'll just try to create it in the system based on whatever the voicemail is. Or once we contact you and find out what's going on, then we'll adjust it accordingly. If there's already a ticket open and you're just calling back, checking in, we'll merge them and end up putting it into the same one that you already have open. Before we move forward, I just wanted to ask if anybody still has any questions about service support.
Just a quick one. So, to be clear, after hours, holidays, whatever, nobody's going to see that service and come back to work on Monday.
That would be correct. Right now, after hours and on the weekends, we do not have after hours or weekend support. I tried to do it when I first started at Oliver, and that's why I have so much gray in my beard now. I still try to, if somebody's having an emergency, and I see it come through, I still try to reach out. The only thing I would ask is, if it's not an emergency, try to wait till Monday. I have had people just call and call and call and call, and it was just something when they were sitting in their driveway, and they were having a camping trip planned for a month later, and but they were just, I know sometimes we have an issue, we want to get rid of it right then. But I'll try to always support everybody on the weekends or after hours as I can. Now, I don't know, at some point, I'm sure we're going to have to, as we continue to grow, get some kind of system in place to have an after-hours contact to try to help, or at least have a rotation where it could rotate out to different people. I don't know when that will come into place, but I'm sure it will at some point. That would be a question that I'd have to sit down with several people at the company and make a decision. What does that look like? Who answers that phone, and how do we rotate it around? As of right now, the only two people really trained for phone support are myself and Mike Sharp. Some of the others can help on certain aspects, certain issues, but they're not fully trained and wouldn't even be able to handle every situation that came through. But we'll continue to look into it. Yes, ma'am.
What's the procedure for the parts department? Is there a real person?
There is. His name is Ryder Cottle. He's over the parts department. You can contact him directly, or you can talk to Mike or myself. We still take the parts phone calls, get that information. At some point, we will pass it on to him, whether he has to order that part, ship the part, whatever. He would be the one that ultimately it's handed over to, and that he would finish with it. Any other service support questions, parts? We will go ahead and move on. The next thing I wanted to talk about was yearly maintenance. We have a yearly maintenance plan set up. It's based on the year. The one hard thing with campers is that everybody uses it differently. We have people that live in it full time. We have people that camp 9 months a year, and then I have customers who literally only use it for a week or two a year, and then put it in a climate-controlled storage facility. So it's really hard to have a maintenance package universal. This one is basically what I recommend, and it is based on some of the component warranty recommendations. They want this to be done for their warranties to continue on into year number 2. Some of it is preventative maintenance. Some of these things with some customers, you may find that some of it you could go longer than a year. Some people may have to do it a lot more than a year, but it's all based on how you use your camper and where that camper is located. But if we look at the yearly maintenance package, and I put most of what we do, there's a lot of other little onion things that we do look at, but these are the things that I wanted to cover. On the air conditioner, the stuff that we do is based on the medics requirements. We do what they say needs to be done in order for that second year warranty to be valid. Never had the medic void a warranty, but they do state in their paperwork or their warranty documentation they have the right to. So we want to make sure that that's taken care of so that does not happen. Same thing on the Dometic furnace, and the Norco refrigerator. Now, if you look at the plumbing leak test, that is not necessary to continue the warranty. That's just a preventative maintenance. If you're there, I want to test it and make sure you have no leaks. If you do, I'd rather get it fixed right now than do a phone call in a week when you're out in the middle of nowhere camping. That's the time you want to be enjoying it, not repairing your olive. So we do a full pressure test, try to make sure to see if there are any leaks. The water heater, I did want to talk a little bit on the Suburban and the Truma. It's a little different. The Suburban water heater, you basically just drain it, flush it, check the anode, replace it if necessary, put it back in. The Truma's got a decalcification process that has to be done. Now, it will tell you when it's time to do it. The little yellow light will start flashing rapidly, let you know that it needs to be cleaned. I recommend doing it at least once a year because I would not want to be in the middle of a vacation trip and then it start flashing. Because when it flashes, you've got to stop and clean it. And it's a 3-hour process. So I'd rather plan and time it, get it knocked out before I go out somewhere camping. Now the decalcification, you can do it yourself. We've got a professional kit that we use to do it. We also sell the tablets, and then you can walk through the process yourself as well. The other part of decalcification is on the plumbing. And that depends on where you live, where you camp, what water source you use. I've heard California and Arizona, parts of Florida are really bad with hard water. I've got customers that's gotten so bad that they've put in water softeners. Water filters will not do anything with hard water. It requires you to use a water softener, or you'll have to decalcify the plumbing every so often. If you live in a really bad area, you could do it 4 or 5 times a year. If you don't, once a year, or if you don't use it all that often, it might go 5 years. But we do it when we bring it in just to make sure it's good. Because if it gets decalcified, you may lose all water pressure in your kitchen, your bathroom. I've had it to where people say my faucet's not working. And all it was hard water buildup. Just had to be flushed out. Now, what we use is distilled white vinegar. It's a little bit stronger than what you can get at Walmart, but the stuff you get at Walmart would be fine too. You just do it so you hook it up at the rear boondock ports, turn it on like you're winterizing the camper, but you're just running through all the faucets and cleaning everything out. The sooner you do it, the better, because I've had some that were so bad when we ran it through, we still had to disassemble the faucet and basically submerge the cartridge in vinegar because it was built up so bad. But very simple process, takes a little bit of time, but once you're done, you definitely want to flush it with regular water and get the smell out of it. Lake valve lubrication, we do it during the yearly maintenance. You don't have to wait for a year. It's basically just to make sure the seals, and all the blade valves is plastic parts. You got a rubber seal, and you're running a plastic blade up and down. Those rubber seals need to be lubricated. We use a blade valve lube that's coconut oil based. I've had customers tell me they just pour it on dish liquid down there and it seems to work for them. I don't know, I've never tried it. But as long as something is lubricating those, it will help that blade valve work a little bit better. The jacks, the maintenance we do on them is based on Parker manufacturing requirements. They say once a year to lubricate the pivot point. So you've got a jack head that sits on a leg. The only thing that holds that head in place are 3 little set screws. You loosen those up and the head pops right off and you'll immediately be able to see the grease is already in there. So that's something you could do, put it back on. It's very important to get the set screws tight. Otherwise, when you go to use your jack, all of a sudden that head will just start spinning around the leg. The other aspect that they tell you to look at is actually inside the gears. It's a little bit more complicated to take apart. You'll take the plastic cap off. There's 4 bolts under there. And kind of break a seal loose to get in there. And it is a much different grease. It's an industrial grade style. Typically, it lasts much longer, and it's pretty good. The pivot point definitely needs to be done every single year. Bearings, wet bolts, and brakes. We do the bearings and the wet bolts based on Dexter requirements. I've got a lot of questions about it. The wheel bearings, 2021 models and prior, now we're using the never lose, which are sealed hub assemblies. But anything where the bearings have to be repacked, it has to happen every 12 months or 12,000 miles. Dexter says whichever comes first. I will tell you that based on my experience, if you try to go past the mileage, it's not going to end up well. I've had a few people who did, and the bearing welded itself to the spindle. So definitely make sure you're getting that taken care of. Anytime those bearings are repacked, the brakes should be inspected, everything should be looked at, and we're going to go and look at that a little bit deeper here in a little bit. The recaulk of the exterior. This is a preventative maintenance type deal. Caulk breaks down. No matter what you put it on, if it's an exterior caulk, it's going to break down. The camper being out in the sun, more often it's in the sun, the quicker it's going to break down. Salt water tends to be harsh on everything on the exterior of the camper, but it's something you'll at least want to look at to see if it's starting to crack, chalk, come apart, because anytime that starts to happen, you can have a water leak. So we definitely recommend doing that at least once a year. Now, if you are someone who uses it 2 weeks a year and it's stored inside, chances are you're going to be away with going a little bit longer. You probably still want to look at it and make sure everything's looking good. But even with a residential house that sits still and does not move, after it's constructed in year 1, they tell you to recaulk it. And every 5 years after that, when it never moves. The camper's moving quite a bit. So, and that just ensures and makes sure that you don't wake up with a water leak. Now, one thing I did want to talk about as far as caulk goes, we use Essary 335. We have white and we have clear. Those are the 2 silicones we use. It's a military grade paste that the military uses. It's really good stuff, but it's still like every other caulk will break down over time. On the roof joints, we put it on at each joint that we have, and then in service we use a self-leveling caulk. The self-leveling caulk is not pretty. It is what a lot of places use, but a lot of places use it because it's quick and easy. I use it because I want it to cover and protect the silicone that has been placed on the joints. So if you have an awning bolt that's sticking through your roof, I have my guys silicone the joint and then cover that with self-leveling caulk. That way that silicone is beneath the self-leveling caulk, protects it, and helps make it last a little bit longer. Because my biggest concern is no water leaks on the roof. And all the side stuff, everything else, once you hit the side, as far as the windows down to the belly down, most of that caulk should be aesthetics. All your windows have fuel tape behind the flange, and that's what should be sealing it. The windows definitely get a bad rap because they are the one thing that is the outside of the camper and the inside of the camper. So it goes from both shells. Any leak that you have in the roof that gets in between your shells, if it so happens to find its way to a window, it's most likely going to leak to the inside at that point. But it's not necessarily the window leaking. It could be something up above it, the porch light, the awning bolts, solar, AC, max everything. Something else could be actually impacting it. The other thing to keep in mind, even in the automotive industry, I worked there for a long time, water leaks is something everybody hates. Nobody enjoys it, and trying to trace them down is really hard. On some of the older models where the Omni antennas on the front of the camper, if your camper is just slightly off level to the back and it's leaking on the Omni antenna and it hits that coax cable, it could travel all the way back to the rear cabinet before it starts dripping out, making you think that you got a water leak at the rear area, and it's actually coming from the front of the camper just because it's slightly raised in the front. Same thing side to side. The one thing also to keep in mind is on the windows, all those windows have water tracks. It's normal for the water to come inside. Where that sliding window slides, that's part of the water track. It will fill up with water, and it should drain out the outside weed holes. But if you raise that camper and tilt it off level, now the difference is that water is going to go inside instead of outside because it's going to go with gravity. So definitely make sure everything is as level as possible. And with the bubble on the front jack, don't always trust it. We adjust it every year with the yearly maintenance package because it's going to get out of whack. You just have to get a regular level, set it inside the camper, and then it takes a little screwdriver and you adjust it on the front to get it back into spec.
Can you repeat the name of the silicone? ASI?
ASI 335. One of the other things that we cover in there is the LP drop and operating test. That's on the LP lines, the regulators themselves. What the drop test is, it's a time drop test. We hook it up, pressurize the system, and make sure it holds pressure. That's just to check to make sure you don't have any leaks in the system. If we do find a leak, then we'll start using a leak detector or soapy water. Most of the time we use both just to verify for certain, fix it, and then you finish that up with another time drop test and keep going until every single leak is fixed in that system. Anytime with a system like that, sometimes you won't always find something. If you have a huge leak here and a tiny leak here, this is where you're going to see it all dumping to you. You're going to have to go here and fix this, retest before you even know that this one's there. So sometimes it can take a little bit of time. The operating pressure test is just for the regulator. It's testing to make sure your regulator is providing the right amount of pressure out to your appliances. If the fridge, the stove, or your furnace, if it doesn't get the right pressure, it's not going to work properly. And the final test is just a lockout that's on the regulator to make sure it is operating properly as well. We do a 7-pin test. The reason we do that, the 7-pin is left out in the weather all the time. Some people have little caps, things they put on it, but there's always moisture in the air. Some people put bags around it. The problem with bags is sometimes even air builds up because of the humidity in the air inside there. When that water gets inside the 7-pin, corrosion starts to build up. When that corrosion builds up, you can have your camper sitting there not even hooked to your truck, and all of a sudden your rear tail lights are on. And that's because the corrosion is jumping inside the 7-pin. A lot of you have a 7-pin charge wire hooked to your camper battery. So your camper battery is feeding the 7-pin, and any kind of corrosion, it can jump across there and feed back to one of the other places. What we do is test it, make sure everything's good, clean it, and put dielectric grease in it. The dielectric grease is so that it gets a better connection and helps protect it from that moisture. The axles and suspension, we do a visual check, look to make sure everything is okay. The big thing with all of the visual inspections, or even some tests, electrical especially, if we do an electrical test and it works this second, and we turn around, it could go back that quick. That's just how electronics work. You know, even in the automotive industry, have those computer systems, and you plug in, get all kind of data out of the computer from the truck. But it couldn't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. It only tells you what happened in the past. And then you still have to do a lot of diagnostics to figure out potentially what's causing that. But I wanted to show, this is a copy of the inspection that the technicians have to fill out. They fill it out, they turn it in with every paperwork, and it gets filed and reviewed by myself or Mike to make sure everything was done. Now everything is based upon what we do in the yearly maintenance. It's really small on my screen, so I'm having a hard time seeing. Getting a little older, eyesight's not as good as it used to be. But you'll see the 7-pin plug test, a lot of the different stuff. We do check the tread depth, the pressure. I did want to talk to everybody about the tire pressure. I can't remember when exactly, but it was more recently. Forever and ever and ever, we've always let campers go out with 80 PSI in the tires. That's the max PSI of the tire. However, that's not the best PSI for the tire. We finally got everybody together and everybody agreed. It's always based on the gross vehicle weight rating of your camper and the top tire that you have. So the new PSI, what's the name of the tires we use today? It's slipped my mind. Cooper tires, 55 PSI. If you've got some of the old Michelins, you might check Michelin's website, but the tire company will tell you, I recollect, I want to say 65 on the Michelins, but check their website. It'll tell you 7,000 gross vehicle weight rating, what should those 4 tires PSI be at? That way it'll give you a little bit better ride and won't be so stiff. You'll also see on here, it basically requires them, once they get done with the repack, there's 2 different torques that I really focus on. One is the wheels. They're required to do it 90 foot-pounds first, and then they come back and do it to 120 before it leaves. Now, the wheel torque is supposed to be checked within 50 miles, anytime it has been removed and reinstalled, and then every 250 miles after that. That's because they're aluminum wheels. It's kind of a standard now even in the truck car industry. But it's just safety to make sure everything's staying tight, you're not having any issues. The only other thing in here is the castle nut for the hubs. Make sure that they torque it to 50 foot-pounds, which is close to the max. It's just to set everything, but that torque has to be removed. If you left it, they probably wouldn't turn it. So they have to actually break that torque back off. It's just to set everything up. It gets broken right back off and then hand tight only. But we'll go into that a little bit more here in a minute. This is just the other page of the checklist that they go over, everything that they have to collect. Some of this is just because we want to make sure everything is good to go for y'all. Some of this is required by the manufacturer of the component for us to collect and have on file just in case they were to ever ask for it. This last form just wanted to show you, it's for the LP test. It is something anytime they do an LP test or replace a part that is part of the LP system, it is required to make sure that it passed everything. So looking at the bearing, inspect and repack a little bit more. Definitely want to make sure everybody knows it's 12,000 miles. The big thing I think that some people get confused on is you've also got extra easy flex, which is the wet bolts. Those are the 8 wet bolts each side of the camper on Elite 2. You've got, I believe it's 3 on the Elite 1 each side. You're supposed to grease those every 3 months or 3,000 miles. Those are not sealed. When you put the grease in there, it's all open system, so as you drive it for a while, that grease is going to be getting hit with road spray. The grease may start to come out the ends of it. It is not a sealed system. Do want to make sure, of course, you definitely want to take a look and check the brakes anytime that you have your tires, wheels, that you're doing your own bearing repack. Make sure everything looks good. Make sure nothing is worn incorrectly. It's definitely going to be worn because it's getting used, but if you see anything to where the brake shoes are cracked, falling apart, brake shoes are extremely thin. So if you look in there and they don't look like a brake pad, it's usually pretty thick. That's normal. Brake shoes are very thin. But the magnet is one thing that you really want to take a look at, and we'll look at that here in a little bit. I do have a video because so many people have asked on how to repack the bearings. This is not from Oliver, it's from Dexter. It's one of their videos. I will tell you, if you've never done it before, you might want to have somebody there on hand who has, just in case you have questions. The brake assemblies, I did want to show it just so that everybody can see kind of what it looks like. If you notice, right there is the brake shoe. So this is on a brand new assembly. You can see how thin the shoe actually is just from the very beginning. So if you ever pull it open and see it looks really, really thin, that's normal. One thing you definitely want to look at though is the brake magnet. And you see there in the bottom center, the one brake magnet, it's showing where it's uneven. It's not wearing properly. And when something like that happens, you're definitely going to want to replace the brake magnet. You're going to want to look at the inside of the hub of the drum, because chances are you'll have to do replace too. You'll have that same wear pattern inside it. You can get the inside part of the drums resurfaced, as long as it would still meet specification. But I found that here recently the drum replacement is cheaper than having somebody resurface them. It's hard to see in the picture. You would know it. Let me see. So this line right here, this part below is sloped in back towards the brake assembly, where this top section was more flat, because the brake magnet should have a flat. You could take something and run like a little ruler, just something little, and run it across there. If you see a huge gap somewhere, then it's uneven wear, and that would require a replacement. And a lot of times, if that's the case, the whole brake assemblies are cheaper than two of the parts by themselves. So a lot of times you're better off just to go ahead and replace the whole brake assembly. As far as the never adjust, everybody's brakes, including the 2022 models, are never adjust. You should not have to adjust them. And when you pick them up, they're not completely broken in. You do have to usually go about 250 miles before they self-adjust in. If you repack the bearings, they'll have to re-brake back in. They are adjusted a little bit as we slide the drum on, but we can't have them fully engaged because we can't even have the drum to go back on at that time. So we do have to have them collapse slightly to get the drum on. There is an adjustment in case you ever do want to do it on some campers. At one point, Dexter was putting a metal plate over that, but we could not do it. So some of you may find a metal plate in that area. But if you look under there on the back side of it, you'll see in this picture, right there is where you would go to adjust those. But again, they are never adjusted. You shouldn't have to. If the brakes don't feel like they're doing everything they should be doing, you definitely want to first start working with the brake controller inside the truck. If you've got it to its max, you may have another problem going on. On the YouTube channel, I'll make sure Aaron finds out where it is and lets everybody know. It basically shows how to grease those with the tires in place, because so many people ask. It is a little bit difficult to grease those wet bolts with all the tires in place. It does require usually a flexible tip grease gun, and the tip cannot be too long. There's some out there with really, really long tips. It's not going to be able to get in between the tires and to the tip of the wet bolt. I did want to cover a little bit about the Dexter Never Leave axles for everybody that's got the 2022 model. There's a few people that have already actually upgraded and had them installed on their campers. Basically, the big difference is that it's a sealed up assembly. No need to repack. Dexter warranties it for 5 years or 100,000 miles. Now, what do you do when it fails? You have to take it in and get the whole entire assembly replaced. Similar to like that on the truck. Even most higher-end lawnmowers have those on them now, the sealed up assemblies. To step up to the Never Leave, we did have to go to a slightly bigger axle. It is, however, still be rated 3,500 pounds for the gross vehicle weight rating of the E1 or the E2, based on which one is going on. But it does get you the larger 12-inch brakes and a little bit heavier duty leaf springs. Any model should be able to upgrade to it. The big thing that will come into play is what other changes might have to happen to make it work. There are some older campers where you might have to get different tires, or not different tires, different wheels to mount to it. All of these are 6-bolt, and there were a few produced with a 5-bolt. I did just want to display the recommended wheel bearing lubrication. I've also actually got sheets up here on that, so anybody that wants to just get a copy of this you can come by and get a copy of it. This is from Dexter. The one we use is the Citgo Mystique JT6 high temperature grease. It's a red grease, but that's the one that we use. They say any of these are okay. If you do choose to go to something different, I don't like to mix greases. I tell you, make sure you clean it out. Quite a few people always ask for the part numbers on the bearings. I wanted to make sure everybody got those. The Dexter bearing kit for an Elite 2, and I've got copies of this up here too. So you can come by and get a copy of it for the Dexter kit and all the individual part numbers actually. The bearing kit from Dexter, the red line kit, which is what you'll find at most trailer companies, like Camper World, anywhere that sells camper parts. The BK2 is probably one of the most that you'll find. But somebody does ask about Timken sets quite a bit, so I want to make sure everybody had those in case you wanted the Timken set. The Timken sets are USA made, where the red line I know are Chinese made. Dexter bearing, I can't really answer. I'm not sure where theirs are, but I'd say probably 80% of everything in the USA is made in China. But the Timken sets are supposed to be made here in the United States. Now, the one thing I did want to point out, in the Dexter bearing kit and the red line kit, when you buy a kit, you get an inner and outer bearing, you get the races, the seal, and a key, the part key or a clip. Because depending on which model, some of you may have a key, some may have a clip. Doesn't matter as long as it's got a retainer of some sort to hold that castle nut in place. That does one of them. So with an Elite 2, you have to buy 4 of those kits to have a complete set for both axles. In the Timken sets, when you buy set 17, you get one, so you would have to buy 4, 4, and 4 of the Timkens. But those are set 17, set 4, and then the seal is 4, 7, 3, 3, 3, 6. And they do not come with a new key or clip. On this list right here, and this is what I have copies of, this is the Dexter kit, but it pulls and lists the Dexter part number of each individual item, as well as if you look under the description, it tells you the seal size, the 1.72 inch, and then it shows the bearing cut and cone sizes. That's important if you do not want to buy the Dexter kit. You can take those numbers, go into any auto parts store and buy a seal or something that would match that size. It will really work. It'll be about 10 times more expensive because it's not a motive part, but it will work. Here's the bearing part numbers for the Elite. It's got a Dexter replacement kit as well as a red line part number. And again, I've got some of this information up here that you can come and collect. But it's going to be listed here as a Dexter kit with each individual part number. So that way you know the size of your seal when the bearing company comes. Plumbing. People want to know about basic plumbing tools. I got some here, PEX cutters, PEX deburr measurement tool, a crimp tool, and push fit remover tools. The remover tools just show 2 different styles. The crimp tool, we use that. We use crimp rings. It's more of what you call a professional plumber. Most plumbers are going to use that. However, if you're out on the road trying to do a repair, you may want to get something that's a lot faster and easier, and it works great. Shark Bite, push fit are good products. You just push them on. As long as you get it snapped in properly, attach it, you won't have any problems with it. Some other basic tools for plumbing you might want to have is just an adjustable wrench, either thread tape or thread sealant. Thread sealant is easier for a lot of people. And it is, at least this brand that's shown there, is safe for drinking lines. You definitely want to check that. A few other useful tools I wanted to tell everybody. Number 2 screwdriver, number 2 Phillips head screws used a lot of places. And then the nut drivers, as far as all the stuff we use, is either typically a 1/4, 5/16, or a 3/8 inch bit, and then of course, the torque wrench to torque the wheels. Did want to go over, this is one of the push bit fittings. A lot of people have questions about it. I doubt the video I have will work. It's probably longer than the time we have. But I did bring some, let's see. I did bring some sample plumbing parts, so if you want to come up here and look at it. But one of these, the pipe goes in and it snaps and locks in place, and this just tightens against it. The collar right here that spins may come loose over time, but it should still not leak if that happens. It should be sealed in here regardless. That pipe should not pull out of this without the special tool or pressing this in to release it. Really? I'll post all the videos. I'm going to move on so we can get through everything real quick. This is just talking about some of the bar fittings and crimps. It's with the special tool to crimp, brass crimping onto it. It's what we typically use. But if you're out on the road and you have a pinch, cut it off. Go to the local hardware store and they have a push fit style fitting. I've got some of those up here, sharp bikes as well, that I'll show you. And this is the push to connect fittings I was going to talk to you about, but we'll look at them here. So, solar batteries and inverter. I want to try to cover some of this. So the solar panels are the charge controller. Panels only collect power. They can't do anything with it if you don't have a battery bank, because they've got to dump it somewhere immediately. They do not store power. So it's collecting it and it's pushing it through the charge controller down into the battery where it's stored. Panels are 12-volt systems, charging the 12-volt system, and it depends on sunlight 100%. Early in the morning, it's not going to produce as much as it will at noon. Up north, you're not going to get as much as you will down south. But once that power comes in, it's past the charge controller and then it's sent to the batteries, used to recharge the batteries, and the batteries are actually what's powering everything inside the camper as far as the 12-volt system. The solar does not power anything. It just simply recharges the batteries. On the batteries, you've got the center battery we have, which is distilled lead acid, which is what the SLA stands for. Those batteries are designed more for cold cranking amps, starting an engine like on a boat or a truck. What a camper uses is amp hours. And these batteries are great for standard camping, going to campsites. No sense in wasting money buying something else. Now, if you boondock, you're going to want to step up, or if you think you're going to want to do boondocking, go to the AGM batteries at least, which is a good boondocking battery. It's basically a sealed lead acid battery, just like the other. The only thing is it has a special separator plate in between the cells, and it's a discharge style battery, primarily used in golf carts, where you're driving it using nothing but power all the time, and then recharging it at some point. So it's really, really good for the campers as far as boondocking. The amp hours is basically just a measurement to determine how big your gas tank is. How big is it and how long can you use it before you go refill it? With the 6-volt HM batteries, you can effectively only use 50% of it before you get 12 volt and start going below 12 volts. 11.5 system will start dropping out or start beeping and sending you warnings, letting you know they're losing power. So if your battery bank is 440 amp hours, you can effectively only use about 220. The SLA style batteries are charged at a much lower rate than lithium. The max charge is 60 amps on an lithium battery. However, all of the charge rates are dependent on the type of battery and the number of batteries that you have. With the lithium batteries, the only comparable way to say it's even compared yet an AGM or standard 12-volt battery is to say that it's a 12-volt power source. After that port, it's completely different. It's a very, very advanced battery. It's got software, it's got circuit boards, it can be programmed. Lithionics, I don't know if you saw that, but I mean, they can log into it to a command prompt, just like you would on a computer, and do little programming stuff to it to tweak it. It can be charged at an extremely high rate of power. The large battery banks we offer can be charged at 150 amps per hour. That's very quick. The inverter, I just want to go over the inverter and inverter chargers a little bit. The inverter, in essence, only pulls 12-volt power off of your battery, converts it down between them to power your microwave, your outlets, and then anybody that's got the newer lithium package, your AC. That conversion rate is huge. So if you're using, say like a laptop, something that you would use for a long period of time, that laptop draws 5 amps per hour of 120, it's going to draw at least 50 running through the inverter, which means you're going to be drawing that power down fast. So the inverter is a great thing to have. Just keep in mind, be conscious of how much power you're running. Stuff like the microwave is usually quick. You use it, it pulls 135 amps, but you don't continuously run it. But like your TV, your laptops, things like that, that continuously run, are just adding the power. The charger, so there's different ones and different models. Some chargers are built into the panel, some now are built into the inverter. The inverter and the charger are two separate things kind of inside the same case. When you're hooked to shore power, you do not have to turn the inverter on. That AC power comes in, hits the charger automatically does what it's supposed to do. When you're not hooked to shore power, you do have to turn your inverter on so that it knows you do want to actually pull from your battery and supply it out to your 120-volt appliances. I do not recommend ever leaving the inverter on. And the reason being is if you're hooked to a campground and you think you've got 120-volt power and something's wrong with that power and your surge protector shuts that power off to your camper, your inverter kicks in immediately and still is giving you air conditioner, still giving you a microwave. You think everything is great, 5 hours later you're dead. And batteries are gone and you have no power. So definitely make sure you leave it off so that way if something like that happens, you're aware of it. This is just a quick kind of picture to show kind of the relationship of everything with your battery, solar panels to ports, charger to battery bank, and then your surge protector to your panel to your inverter charger. So your surge protector always gets the power first. If something's wrong with it, it's not even getting to your panel. So it's shut off. So nothing's going to work if the surge protector sees an issue. Both of them, solar and inverter charger, can charge at the same time. Location, you want to know the location of the surge protector in Elite 2. It is located, the actual surge protector under the dinette next to the pantry. You raise that access panel up and you look down in there. It's not what's sitting on the wheel well, it's mounted up and back under on the sidewall. That's the surge protector. Now the display, so to give you the readout information, will either be located under the street side bed access panel on older models or in the rear cabinet on newer models. That will only display information when you're hooked to a 120-volt power source. Otherwise, it's going to be out because it's not got any power to display anything. It's still a good idea to have it. If you have one to put at the pole, I recommend it because the surge protector inside only protects inside the camper. The surge protector outside on the pole would also protect the power cord and the power inlet. And the reason is the number one issue I see is low voltage at campgrounds, and that's because they become overloaded. A whole lot of people using a lot of power, more power than what it was set up and designed to even provide. And when that voltage, low voltage happens, it creates resistance and heat, and it will end up melting some connection. Either the power inlet on the camper and the power cord, or connection at the pole. But 95% of the time, it's the power inlet on the camper that gets the hottest and melts. Yes, it is. You want to know about the EMS. The surge protector we use is an EMS, and it is a little different, especially even the ones that are on the pole. So you've got an EMS surge protector protector and a standard surge. Standard surge protector will only protect against a surge. The EMS that we use will protect against low voltage, high voltage, frequency issues, open grounds, reverse polarities, and several other things that it will protect against.
Do they wear out? Do you replace them?
At some point, it's possible. If it does, it'll throw an error code. You'll either see an E9 on the display. If something goes wrong with it in any way, it'll show an error code, and that error code is linked to something. If you ever see an E10, that means it took a power hit and it's fried. It will have to be replaced, but at least the camper's okay. No, as far as the battery disconnect, there's no real battery disconnect in the camper. There's a red switch in the cabinet up next to the radio and solar charge controller on some campers. That's a solar panel disconnect. There is a 12-volt breaker located under the bed, street side bed area. It's either going to be, depending on your model, a 30, 40, or 60 amp breaker. That, however, does not cut off everything into the batteries. There are some things that have direct connection for safety devices, and those safety devices are still pulling enough power depending on your battery bank. If your batteries were full, it would still kill them within 7 to 21 days based on the type of battery you have. The breaker really doesn't have a life expectancy. If it tripped, it's because some kind of surge went through it and it tripped. All breakers are designed, so if you're at home, if you've ever been running something in the bathroom, especially, because a lot of times you have a high power device running and it'll trip a breaker. It's because you've asked for more power somehow. Something was drawing power through there and it tripped, and it tripped so that resistance and heat doesn't go through the wiring and build up or cause damage to the wiring. So it's supposed to trip, but however, if it keeps on happening, then something is going on. It could have just been something that you did something that created a draw that it didn't like and it tripped, or you could have a problem. As far as tripping and resetting, it's a manual reset breaker. You should be able to do it. However, on the max air fan, if it ever has an issue, you can just pull the fuse for the fan circuit, and that way it just kills the fan circuit. Now, the max air fan and the back fan are on the same one, so you pull it, and neither fan will work at that time. What he's asking is about turning the inverter on off, how that works. You've got 4 buttons on your Xantrex remote display. The top one is going to be an escape button. It's going to show you like a little power grid symbol. That lights you light up every time you plug in shore power, and that lets you know you're on shore power. The next one is a battery that'll let you know if it's got on battery. I think that's the OK button or an arrow, one of them. And then you got error light. The round circle button, that's what you use to turn the inverter on and off with. The AC side is automatic. You don't have to do anything. It will power itself up and do what it's supposed to. But the little round button on the display is what turns the inverter side of it on and off. I recommend it because when you're camping, you're not paying attention to that stuff. You're trying to enjoy the weather, go do what you want to do, and that way if you leave it off, you lose AC power. The only way I like leave it on is if you've got pets and you're leaving them in the camper and you're running AC for them while you go on a 30-minute walk or something, then you might want to leave the inverter on so if you lose shore power, AC is still running for them. Yes, we have all of those services separated. The yearly maintenance is done in a way to where I set it up, and we set it up at a discounted rate because we can plan and prepare, get it in there. One time, get everything set up and get stuff done, so it makes it a little cheaper for you, a little quicker for us than doing separate stuff at different times of the year. Because every time you bring it in, pull it in, you get set up in the bag, you need something put down on the floor to protect your flooring, trying to protect everything, and then pulling everything out and cleaning it. But yes, we will do everything a la carte. There are quite a few people that come in that only just want 1 or 2 items. A couple of different things can cause that. One, it can be something with the Zerk itself. Those screw right out of the wet bolt head, so you can take those off and try to clean it up, put it back on and see if it'll work. Sometimes it's the angle of the grease gun itself. Zerks don't like to, if you put the grease gun on an angle, it doesn't like to go in that little hole. You gotta make sure you can hold it on there straight to get it in. It can be pressure, it can be that something has happened inside and it's dried it up. So the old grease, and it just has to break it free. And then it could be to where there's pressure on it as far as the suspension. Some people raise it and then you can get it to go in, or it was a wet bolt that could have been installed improperly. They have to go basically, the wet bolt, the way it works is it's got a hollow channel down through the center that when you push the grease in the zerk, it goes down inside the bolt. And there's one tiny, tiny hole on the outside. That tiny hole needs to be facing 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock, the best it can. If it gets hit at 12 or 6, it's probably not going to take grease. But the only way to really know if something like that happened is pull it out, check it, and push it back in. But they're supposed to check to make sure it goes in at 9 and 3. It has to be knocked out, yes. Yeah, to remove any of those bolts, it has to be knocked out. It cannot be twisted or it will damage the hanger. But the ones in the center that hang off the tube, that hang off of the Dexter equalizer, come pre-pressed from Dexter. I've checked all of those. I've never found one that wasn't at the 9 or 3, because depending on which way you turn it, those are already pre-set up. If you're having an issue at the front or the rear, that's where it's happening, then that's always a possibility. It might be something that we have to look at. Are you talking about the actual hole in the wet bolt?
Yes.
Okay. In case anybody didn't hear, he said he actually ran into one where there was metal chip contamination in the wet bolt hole, where I guess Dexter had drilled the hole in the wet bolt, and there was still some of that debris left in. He had to clean it out. They're supposed to recock it every year, clean it up and recock it. So you've got two things that can be done. If you wait until the caulk is completely degraded, you do not want to crawl across the top of it. It's too late. At that point, you're going to have to clean and scrape it away so that you have a clean surface to apply the new caulk to. So it is definitely better to caulk before it gets chalky or starts to crack. So what he's asking is the 7 pin as far as charging the batteries. It is hooked up to charge the batteries if you have AGM or standard. If you have lithium, it is disconnected. It does not have a line between the camper battery and the truck battery. And the reason being is because the truck is not efficient enough to charge the lithium batteries, and they're afraid of the lithium batteries because it takes so much more power than a standard battery that it will drain the truck too fast. There are some things out there on the market that you can have installed, but it requires wiring to be run from the truck battery all the way back to the bumper with a special port, and then wires be put on the camper, run into a DC to DC charger, and then connect it to the battery. There are a few customers who've done it. We looked into it but chose not to, simply because every tow vehicle that comes in is so different, and I don't have anyone who is trained on all the different tow vehicles and what to do. It is something that automotive tech could run, and then you could get it to where you could charge your batteries. The decalcification of the plumbing lines is every dollar. There's different processes. There's decalcification specifically just with the Tremo, which requires a special decalcification tablet. The vinegar is only used in the plumbing lines. I do not recommend running vinegar through the water heater, and definitely not bleach. I want to say somebody ran bleach through it one time, and it put out coffee-looking water for about 3 months. What he's wanting to know is the best way to lift the tire off the ground on an Elite 2. Because it's a dual axle camper, the best way to do it and safest is to have, it's a special type of wheel chalk almost that you just drive up on. You drive up on it and it just kind of rocks up onto the higher side, and it'll raise that other tire up off the ground. That's the quickest, easiest, and safest method. If you've got a situation where you drive up on it and it flips and still stays on the ground, something else is going on, because it should raise it up off the ground. Now, if that happens, what I would do in that situation is take some type of jack, use a bottle jack, scissor jack, floor jack, anything that you have. And all of the normal campers, sometime in 2018, they started putting jack point stickers on them. I believe it was in 2017, they extended the sub-assembly and made it a little longer. The big part is to try to get it on the sub-assembly. The sub-assembly is steel. It's galvanized, but to get it on that point. The other section would be, depending on what kind of jack you're using, especially, you might want to put some kind of cribbing in between the jack and the frame, like a block of wood or something. And that's going to be the secondary best option. Now, for anybody that's got an older model that didn't have the sub-assembly extended out further, you'd want to get as close on that frame as you can to the wheel you're going to jack up off of the ground. You still want to put some kind of cribbing so that ball or scissor jack's not hitting one tiny impact point on the frame, and then just raise it up, hit the tire off, and back on the ground as soon as you can. But those are the three best ways. We do not recommend using the actual stabilizer jacks. They may have the capability to raise it, but it's not safe. What Scott's saying is if you do have to use a jack to lift the camper, you may still want to put your stabilizer jack of the camper down on the ground, not to lift it, but to stabilize it for safety. If you want to know about the upgrade to the neighborhood, as of Wednesday, and the Elite 2, I want to say it was about $3,000. I say as of Wednesday because 3 weeks ago it would have been cheaper, but the price of parts just continues to skyrocket. I want to say it was about $3,000 to pull it all out. That gets you the new axles with leaf springs. We usually replace the shocks at that point, and we put new bronze bushings and web bolts in as well. The repack itself runs about, takes it all, we'll say it's right around $302. It would definitely be something of preference. I will tell you, if you are considering, at least I would try to time it around the year, just so that way I am saving that $300 and I'm getting that $3,000, but it's just a preference. The only advantage is going to be that you don't have to bother repacking your bearings. I do it at work, but I do not do it outside of work, even on my own stuff. I don't enjoy that. So I would rather have it never do. You do have bigger brakes. It comes with 12-inch brakes instead of 10-inch brakes, which is a little beneficial. And the leaf springs are heavier duty than what's on there today. So there are a few advantages. It just depends on, does that matter to you? Yes. Yeah, the retrofit can be done to the never loop axles. I know it will work all the way back to the 2014-15 models. Like I said, once you go before that time frame, I believe a lot of those were done with 5 bolts. So that doesn't mean it can't be done. It just may require a different wheel. But yes, 21, it's basically the same width axle that we use today. It's just a bigger tube, bigger brakes, never loop with the steel bearings. On the shocks, the only way to test it really is you're going to have to take one side loose, compress it, and see if it extends itself. If it does not, then it's bad. So basically, you just take the 2 pieces, push it together, and see if it comes back out. If it doesn't, you need to get it replaced. Right now, there is not. I have looked and looked to see if there was anything out there. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Bilstein. I talked to them a few years ago too, but they do not currently have something that would meet what we need as far as doing. It's hard to say the lifespan. I actually had one straight out of the box yesterday that was bad, and I had to take it back and get a replacement immediately. But that happens sometimes with parts. Where we try to check them before we put them on. It's hard to say. The best way is to just do a visual inspection is to get under there and see if you see anything like any leakage coming from it. You will notice cracking on the rubber part where it mounts, which they say is normal. But if you see any leaking coming from the shop, and if, especially if you unbolt it and test it, and it doesn't extend itself and it's bad. The gray tank, he's asking about the gray tank cinder that's located on the gray tank to show percentage of capacity. The location is under the street side bed access panel. If you lift it up, same one where the jack on that side is located, you'll have to kind of lean over down into the access panel, twist a little bit, and you'll see it on the side of the tank. It just looks like a little green circuit board with two wires coming out of it. Now those are double-sided tape, basically. They come from the manufacturer. You pull this piece of paper off and stick it, and that's how it reads it. Now, the level of the tamper is extremely important when reading that, because as you move side to side, front to back, all that water will move in that tank, either toward the center or away from it. We can actually make it look like it's full with less than a gallon of water. If we raise it all the way up and dump it to that side. But, as far as getting in there to it, you should be able to see it. The two wires come out of it. You have to find the butt connectors. And then once you find the butt connectors, you just snip them off, pull it off, you can put a new one on. When you're in there, it's very important. All those cinders come in as the same. They don't know what tank they're going on. The way that they are programmed as far as fresh, gray, or black is 3 little tabs across the top. And you either have to leave it intact. I want to say if they're intact, it's a fresh tank cinder. And then you cut one tab with another tab to dedicate it to the gray or the black tank. There is a guy, his name is Gabe. I can't remember his last name. He works for Garnet Industries who make that, and he's really good at troubleshooting. He'll do email, phone, he'll walk you through a lot of stuff too, to see if something like that is bad, and he'll ship you a brand new one. It's not. What happened there is the windows that we're using were hair windows. Hair had 4 holes. Liquid Components bought hair out, and within a month they went to 2 holes instead of 4. I contacted them too because I had concerns about that, and their engineer said that based on the water tracking written in there, 2 was more than enough. But I kept calling, and at some point, I don't know if it was just my phone calls or other manufacturers as well, they did go back to 4 holes. But technically, it should be enough to leak out. The big thing that I see with window leaks, I'm checking stuff, if it's not something coming from the roof down. The window slide that goes back and forth, that black weather strip that it rides across is 5 pieces. And those 5 pieces can move with the sliding window if something happens, if it starts to wear because it's got felt on it that's supposed to allow the glass to move. If it separates, it will cause a leak. There's a bump stop on the right side, so when you open it all the way up, it's a white bump stop. That screw goes through there. That screw is caught on the other side by the window manufacturer. But if something happens to that water sits in that tray when it's raining, before as it's draining out, it still sits there, and it'll leak down around that screw and then start leaking inside the camper. Those are some common things. If it's not that, then it'd be something you'd have to look at, because I'm not sure. I mean, it could be something to where somehow on his window, behind the window flags, water's getting behind and getting into it. What we have to do for anything like that, once we check the basics, we pull the inside trim ring off, do a water test, and see if we can see where it's coming in at, and then sort of trace it back from there. Those gaps can fall off. If they are pressed back in any way and deformed, it gives them a greater opportunity to fall off. and they are extremely thin metal. The ones that come standard on the Dexter axles. There is a grease cap or a little cap you can get. I can't remember the name of it. It's a little more expensive, but it's a much thicker, heavier duty type cap. And I have had a customer where he said that every single time he repacked his bearings, he at least had one or two fall off, and he switched to that, and then told me he hasn't had any other issues with it since. I don't know the name of it. I'll have to find that out, but even if you replace the standard one that's on there, if you accidentally hit it in the wrong way, hit it on and deform it, it's got a chance to come off. It's also got a chance if you get it wrong and deform it, it won't even go back on. So
even when you find the name of that new cap, the new cap, and you figure out which one it is,
I
can
can.
you send us a note or something?
Yes. The other thing is, and they're very, very hard to get a hold of, or they have been here lately, you can get a grease cap tool. I was going to say you can get a grease cap tool. It's a special tool designed to actually install those to try to make sure that doesn't happen. It's like a little cone with a handle, and that way you just set the cap in it, put it up there, and then you can hit it and knock it in. Those are supposed to ride on the flange of that cap and help press it in and try not to deform it. They sell them on e-trailer in some different places, but right now I know it's been hard to get a lot of those parts and special tools, but that might help.
What's the telltale sign that the cap has come off? I mean, with the hubcover on there, how do you tell?
So the hubcaps that we use, and what you want to know is what's the tell sign that the grease cap came off. The hubcaps we use has a little center popping on the very end. If the cap comes off and it's rolling around in there, sooner or later it's going to hit and knock that off. So you'll walk back there and find that center piece missing, and the chances are that's what's causing it.
You can look inside and see that cap, it's laying.
Right.
Yes.
How much mileage do you have from there to get it fixed?
That would depend, because even though the grease cap is out, that doesn't mean it's ruined. Grease cap is there to try to keep out, road spray and different stuff. I mean, if it's a beautiful dry day, you may be fine. You get to where you're at, they pull it off, look at it, and everything is good, and you pop the cap back on. If it's a wet, rainy day, or if you're out in the desert and dusty area, then you might want to pull that one back apart and clean it and repack it, because chances are something's gotten in it.